Hey, this is Daryl Olson from Jackson Fishing Team and participant in Project Healing Waters, and here in Charleston, South Carolina. But I understand on the next few weeks I signed up for it. Our fly tying expert's going to have us tie 5, maybe 6, but I've got recipes that he shared with everybody on 5 steelhead and salmon flies. And tomorrow night we're going to tie the Wahlflower, and I don't know what source he's using, but I'm going to use Steelhead flies by John Stewie, and it's got all the patterns that he's having us tie in here, and there's not step-by-step for them all, but it's got step-by-step instructions for using the various materials that we're going to use, and it was pretty interesting. I mean, I learned a little bit in there. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to try to show you how this fly will be tied tomorrow night. And anyway, this is how I would tie it, and let's take a look at it. Well, this here's the Wahlflower, and Wall is in W-A-L-L. It's not that term about being a wallflower at a dance, but its Wahl is W-A-H-L. It's named after the individual that created this fly, and that's Ralph Wahl. I'm thinking I'm pronouncing his name right, but I'm going to use some materials maybe that is not identified on there, and I'll explain why I'm using those as I go along. And anyway, we're going to tie this fly. See if I can get it somewhat centered here. In there. The hook I'm going to use is a Anrex HR 412. It's a low water single number 6. It's for classic low water design salmon flies or steelhead flies. It's got a turned up eye. It's standard wire. I'm not sure what kind of hooks we're going to be tying with on that, but the hook is kind of unique. You can see there it's a bend over, and we're going to try to fill that in. But the challenge with salmon flies is keeping the body level in there. And on there, let me debarb. It's a hard hook to debarb. These are fairly strong hooks. Even a saltwater hook debarbs easier than this. And just so that you're not getting too bored, I will probably stop talking at certain points to when I'm editing the video to to speed it up a little bit when I'm editing, so kind of cut the time down. It's a complicated tie. Alright, I'm going to start off with some white 8/0 thread. When you're wanting to work with floss material, the lighter color, sometimes if you're using the black thread as the recipe's calling for, will make the color darker than what it's intended to be. So that's why I'm using white. I don't know if that's the rule for salmon flies, but that's going to be what I'm going to do. And we're going to want to make sure this is smooth. So you're going to do some touch and wraps. And about every 8 or 10 turns, give it a counter spin to uncord the thread so it's laying flat. And I'm not counting, so I just feel like at a certain time I'm gonna do that. But we're gonna lay down some thread. And I'm gonna stop just about past the point of the hook. Right about there. And then I'm going to take it back, touch and turns, take your time. And I'll point out that I am stopping my thread just in front of that gap right there for now. And I'm going to use some material to fill in this offset, because it's gonna, it's not going to be quite level. The next material we're going to use, I'm going to put in our tag in, which is some silver tinsel, and I'm going to use small. You can use fine or medium, but the author of the book says you should never use large when it comes to these flies in there. Don't ask me why, but that's what I read. And since there's a gold side and a silver side, we're going to put the gold side outside, facing towards me, and I'm going to start tying this in right up there where that gap is on that hook. And again, I'm going to do touch and turns to where I ended the thread. And then I'm going to go opposite wrap on here. And I'm just going to go just past where the barb of the hook used to be, or where the barb is if you've got a barb on yours. And then I'm going to come back up. On there. And then I'm going to lock this in. And I'm going to tie this back in up to where I started it. And making sure my thread wraps are side of the hook away from me. If you keep seeing me adjusting it, that's what I'm doing. And we'll take the thread back. So we can put in our butt section, which is some orange floss. And I'm using uni floss. It's a single strand in orange. And we're gonna start this and then offset the thread, and we'll shorten that a bit, and I'm going to come forward I don't know, maybe about the same or a little bit longer than the tag end. I am gonna, something I forgot, kind of burnish those threads to get them smooth. And I think maybe just in front of the point right there. And this I'm going to wrap the regular way. So right about to there. Take off some of these wraps. Tie that thread in. Trim that off and smooth up my body again. Let's see if we can build this up. I'm sure somebody will comment on my video that maybe I was doing this wrong, but we'll see. stop right there. And next we're going to do is we're going to use some golden pheasant crests. And the crests on a golden pheasant is actually this part here, not the tips, or whatever those are. And I'm going to use 3 of these fibers. You could use more if you want. And we're going to want to make sure they're stacked and that we're putting them in the curved side up. So it's just going to be a loose wrap here. And then we're going to grab these ends and we're going to try to pull up and on there. I don't like that. Try it again. And we're going to want them to be about the length of the gap of the hook, or eyeballed about there, not very long. And I got one that's sideways right here. Just take your time. Just take your time. This isn't a race. It might be, but it's not for me. And then again, I'm going to pull them up. I still got it sideways. We'll try it again. I think right about there looks right. And then I'm going to kind of use the body or to fill in going forward. All right, the next material we're going to put in is some oval tinsel. I have it here somewhere. Some French tinsel or oval tinsel in silver, and I'm using large. I'm not, I don't know. Doesn't seem big enough to me to that, but maybe it's too large for the body. And I'm going to do is I'm going to try to trim off some of this tinsel right off of here. And try to tie it in on the bottom. Don't know why, but it just seems like the tinsel coming off the bottom for the wraps is the right thing to do. And by taking that, removing the tinsel cover from the core, will help keeping the body slender. Next we'll put in our chartreuse thread, but what I'm going to do is kind of see if rubbing these down a little bit to burnish them to get them a little flatter or smoother. You know, it's that little drop right here is probably a bad thing right there. I don't know if you can see it, but again, I'm using some Vivas chartreuse. It's a single strand. And we're going to go ahead and put this under there, kind of offset it a little bit. And we'll bring this in and wrap our thread forward to where we're going to finish the chartreuse area. And I might just try to build up right here. Try to fill that drop in. And now that I did that, we'll do that. And I'm going to counter wrap this one. I think doing these by layers like this will help eliminate if you had any breakages, and try to make sure you're not twisting that floss, making sure it stays flat. But you can see if you're using a black thread, that chartreuse might get a little darker even when it got wet. remove that excess. We might have enough there to do another fly. Kind of clean that up a little bit. And then we'll just wrap this our normal way. And 5 or 6 evenly spaced might be it. It could be less than that depending on the look you're trying for. Looks like 4. All right. Next we're going to do is we're going to put a hackle, or he calls it a throat. I'm going to show you the way that they suggested in the book, but it might not be the way you're taught. This is maybe, I don't know, makes it a little fuller. It could be a nicer throat maybe, I don't know. But I'm going to use some orange hackle. And I'm just going to strip away the material that I'm not needing. And I'm going to brush these down to get from a tip point of view. And putting that tip about where my thread is, that you'll see these fibers are probably pretty close to around where that point is. We're going to tie it in on the concave side down with the tip going forward. I'm going to trim out that point, being careful not to in there. And I'm going to go ahead and hackle that, fold these back, and we're going to give it maybe 3 or 4 wraps. And we'll tie that off. Fold these fibers back. And we'll trim off the stem. And I'm going to try to divide these in half. looks kind of weird. I'm going to whip finish this. And then I'm going to use that 3/0 black thread. See, we got that somewhat folded there. Next we're going to do is use some yellow dyed squirrel tail. But if you want, if you're going to do a lot of different squirrels and different colors, you can get these combo packs instead of buying whole squirrels. It's basically they're just the tips here. And I'm just going to pull some fibers away. If you want, you could stack these to even out the colors, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use them the way they are. I'm going to try to make the wing maybe go about halfway or 3/4 of the length of that. And I'm just going to add that squirrel is pretty slippery. It's not easy to work with. And you want to keep it on top of the hook. Don't let it spin. Alright, now all we got left is a whip finish. That tail sitting on top. We got that throat in there, our tail in there. We just need to add a little head cement. And let that dry, and there you have it. It's the Wahlflower by Ralph Wahl, and this is my interpretation on how to tie it. Hopefully you found that interesting and fun to do. Hey, just get out there and play around. You'll never know. I might even have room to put some eyes on that fly, like paint them on there. All right, there you you have it. My variation or my thought on how to tie the wallflower, steelhead or salmon fly. You know, if you don't have what they term the salmon hooks with the up eye, there's no reason why you probably can't tie that with a down eye or the standard eye that just comes straight off the shank of the hook on there. But it was a fun tie. I learned a lot by tying that fly, and we'll see what it does. Even if you're not fishing for salmon or for steelhead, these flies will probably work for bass flies, especially smallmouth bass. Anyway, I'm Daryl. I hope you found this interesting to tie up a few. Hope you found it helpful to help you after the class tonight. And we will see you on the water. Tight line.